This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is November 25th, 2024. Welcome to the podcast. I would first of all like to ask you to start subscribing to the channel. Haven't said that before. From this past week, we had 83 views, and I am very excited about that. And I'm trying to head in the direction of more specific policy and getting people to subscribe. So thank you if you feel like that you can subscribe. Here's what I want to jump into right away. I want to talk today about the U.S. government federal policy on, and it's the continuing saga of looking at U.S. government agencies that I think will be eliminated or downsized. Now, we're going to look at today the U.S. African Development Foundation and the United States Agency for International Development. So those are two different agencies. So I want to start off with an article that came from the Department of Government Efficiency. They won't actually have a real voice until after January 20th. But there was an article that I want to point out some of what they are saying, two things, and then apply them to why I think that these federal agencies are vulnerable. So from the article, it says, we expect mass reductions in force in areas of the government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the government. Second one area in particular in which he expects a significant reduction. We're talking about Wamasami because someone asked him the question throughout Washington is in the number of non-elected civilian employees of the federal government, known as civil servants. We don't need 4 million, and we shouldn't have 4 million civil servants who aren't even elected or can't be removed from their positions. It's anti-democratic. Okay, so those are two important statements that the incoming DOG people are talking about. Now let's look at the first one, which would be the U.S. African Development Foundation. And like I said previously, this is a federal government agency. So they came into being in 1980, and the point of their existence was to invest directly in African grassroots enterprises and social entrepreneurs. So they were supposed to partner with African governments, other U.S. government agencies, private corporations, and foundations to achieve transformative results. All right, so here's the juicy part. The African Development Foundation is funded through annual United States government appropriations for foreign operations. That's important. So those are taxpayer dollars. And furthermore, they want to maximize taxpayer dollars by linking African host country government funds, corporate social investments, U.S. government interagency funding sources to achieve economic growth opportunities for grassroots, small, growing enterprises in underserved regions across Africa. When you say underserved regions of Africa, most times you're talking about the black African nations like Sudan, Ethiopia, places like that. So I want to establish that. So, what is their budget? Well, in the fiscal year, a recent one, it was 33 million to carry out their business of using government money to help people in these underserved regions across Africa. Now, Wikipedia has a very good article on them if you want to look at their accomplishments. So, at their 40th anniversary, the American taxpayer for this agency had invested $265 million. That is a lot of money. And like I say, if you want to see what they've done, go to Wikipedia and put in that agency and you'll see. Now, in 2014, something happened, and this is important. Congress formally changed the foundation's name in 2014 from the African Development Foundation to the United States African Development Foundation to reinforce that it's a federal agency and not a nonprofit, and to further differentiate from the African Development Fund and African Development Bank. So, this agency, with what I just said in my last statement here, is we don't only have this one, we've got African Development Fund and African Development Bank. Now, I don't know if those are using taxpayer dollars, but I'm going to have to check that out. And it has a staff of 27 federal employees. Why is that important? It's not a lot of employees, but if we're looking at what I'm talking about for agencies that are not needed or need to be downsized, this is a good candidate. Now, I haven't read any articles that is what they're going to look at. What I'm telling you is I'm going through, and I did education last week. I'm doing these two this week, and I'm going to keep looking because I want you to know where the agencies are that I think that they're going to go and look at and have a good shot at getting rid of or downsizing. Okay. And also with this one, seems like it's a little redundant, but I'll get back to that later. All right. The next one is the United States Agency for International Development. When it's abbreviated, it's called USAID. It's an independent agency of the United States government responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance. Now, this one is a little different. This one's globally, but watch. Their budget is $50 billion a year. $50 billion a year. That is significant. Not only that, the United States Agency for International Development, calling themselves abbreviated USAID, is one of the largest official aid agency in the world and accounts for more than half of all U.S. foreign assistance, the highest in the world in absolute dollar terms. Now, let's keep reading this because if you weren't surprised by that, you're really going to be surprised now. Okay, so this one is from 61, and really Congress passed the Foreign Assistance Act, which created Foreign Assistance Program, but the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, in 61 signed an executive order calling it the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID. And the reason I keep saying USAID is when it's abbreviated, that's what it's turned into. It's turned into USAID. Okay. All right. Now, here's something else interesting. So, this agency, USAID, operates subject to the guidance of President, Secretary of State, and National Security Council. Why is that important? Whoever's in power can put money in there and bypass Congress because, as I've told you in other podcasts, they are federal agencies and they get funding every year. Now, here's something that will shock you. You know what their motto is? Their motto is from the American people. And we're talking about tax dollars. And I thought that that was absolutely not the right motto to have from the American people. Guess how many employees they have? They have 10,235 employees. And if you go and look and do a little research on them, like I've been doing for you, that doesn't include contractors. They are in Washington, D.C., and they have hubs all over the world for USAID. And we're probably familiar with it, but like I told you, it's very interesting that they call themselves international development when actually all they're doing is giving aid for everything. So, these are two government agencies, as I previously told you, that I think the DOGE, or Department of Government Efficiency, is going to look at. And the more you learn about these agencies, this is this big notion of big government, especially with the international development. This is so big and their budget is so big, we don't know where the money is going to or to whom. And the initial intent of why this agency or both of these agencies exist is up in the air. And the American people must get accountability from these agencies through audits, like I've previously talked about in other podcasts. Otherwise, we are putting money in a black hole and we can't even wrap our arms around it. What do you think about this? Are these two agencies that you think should be eliminated or downsized? And I want you to go and read about them. Don't just take it from me. And also hit that subscribe button. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think.